I am Antoinette Bailey. I am Amber's MBA Student of the Year 2018. Since graduating from my MBA, I am working in the social entrepreneurship space. We are currently working on developing a technological app that works on quantifying the metrics of the UN SDGs for businesses and individuals. So my presentation today was mainly about sharing with the institutions, from a student perspective, what my MBA journey was like. The good, the bad, and what I've learned. As student president, I had a lot of exposure, and especially with a new MBA faculty member this year, to really see what transformation looks like. And that's something that I wanted to share with the delegates today. And I think also it's really useful to get a perspective on China from a non-local perspective. I had the privilege of studying with a highly mainland Chinese demographic. And for me, the cultural learnings, it's something that you can't study about from far away. It's something you need to be there and live and experience. And that's what I got to be able to do throughout my MBA. To be honest, I got the social entrepreneurship bug throughout the MBA. And I knew very little about the SDGs before leaving, but the more I researched about how I could take my knowledge and values I've learned throughout my MBA, I kept coming up with the SDGs. I was looking for a framework, and there's not really anything else that covers in as much detail the factors that we do need to consider in terms of sustaining our environment in the way that we currently live. And not only that, ensuring that everybody has the chance to live a life of quality. So for me, it's something that I think is most pertinent. It's a framework, it's a start. We have to build from somewhere, and there's not really much else to go on.
Perfect. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Just going to reset.
Oh, for sure. I mean, there are two different stakeholders with two different interests. That's going to cause some kind of disconnect at the start. But I think the key is to understanding what that difference is, and from both perspectives, trying to figure out a compromise of who needs to give and in what elements. So we touched upon the alumni side of things, and we talked about the interconnectedness between when you're a prospective student, a current student, and an alumni, and how your experiences at each touch point will eventually dictate how you interact and how you engage with the schools. So I think the more you engage across multiple touch points, the more you really understand each other's perspectives, and the more you can then try and find a solution. To be honest, it started with the location. That definitely had a very large factor to do with it. I think in this day and age, no one can afford to ignore Asia or mainland China. For me, Hong Kong provided me with a comfort zone. It's like London, it's a very metropolitan city. So I could learn about mainland China, which is my target demographic, from the safety of a metropolitan city that was familiar, like Hong Kong. So in terms of why I went to CUHK specifically, for me, I want to understand about how the entrepreneurial environment is in Hong Kong and mainland China. And what I got out of that was not just Hong Kong and mainland China, but in different Asian countries as well, in India. And that learning can only be experienced, I think, by engaging and living and building relationships with the people of these countries who are going from the same transformations as you. It's a learning process. You search, you figure things out, you get things wrong, you iterate. And I think for me, that's why I chose to go to CUHK. It would give me the best opportunity to do that. I think no matter which route you decide to take, whether it's more entrepreneurial or if you go into a corporate setting, there are communal factors. We are being affected by the same macro factors: digital innovations, technology, AI, machine learning. These are factors that we all have to consider. And nowadays, the most successful companies, like Tencent, like Alibaba in China, they employ a sense of entrepreneurship. So I think whether or not you want to actually be an entrepreneur, having entrepreneurial values will help you in both the entrepreneurial and corporate world. So I think we're all facing the same issues. So yes, in some respects, I do believe that the universities will prepare us to a certain degree. But how relevant and how long is that going to be relevant for? Nowadays, you have ever-changing environment, and the jobs that are here today weren't here yesterday. and the jobs that were there yesterday, they look very, very different. So I feel like the factor of MBA schools being able to actually provide that is going to be how quickly they decide to take that on board, and how quickly the cycle they are of updating their courses, updating their offerings, making sure they're staying relevant. If they stay relevant, we'll have the tools to stay relevant, at least as a base.
And how do you think then, are they doing enough to promote the social responsibility, along the lines of what you're moving forward? Do you think schools are factoring that in enough, or do you think there is room for improvement?
I think as an entrepreneur, you can never say that you don't have room for improvement. In terms of the social space, I would say schools as a whole, the answer is no. We saw that today at this conference. I think when our first speaker spoke about the importance of understanding systems change and understanding how our decisions could have negative consequences and positive consequences depending on how we use them. I don't think students are being exposed to enough in their core courses. And I think having, at least at the very, very, very basic level, having some kind of core basis that touches on social entrepreneurship, that touches on our responsibilities and our accountability as individuals to sustaining our environment as we know it, I think more obviously could be done throughout any MBA school.